In a second-hand set of dimensions, on an astral plane that was never meant to fly, through wavering star mists, see the Great Atuin. Drifting onwards through space, atop the shell of the world's turtle, are 4 giant elephants, upon whose broad shoulders rests the Discworld. Welcome to Dining Table Discworld. We're reading through the Discworld novels and discussing them at our dining table. Be aware there will be spoilers for the current book and others in the series. Hello. Just a few things before the episode properly begins. Firstly, we are approaching the halfway point of the Discworld novels, and with the current schedule, we'll release the Hogfather episode in September 2025. We'd love to have an episode after that with some listener contributions to celebrate being halfway through. So do let us know what you think about Discworld generally, this podcast, any specific novels from Colour of Magic to Hogfather. Also, let us know things you'd like to hear from us. Our email is diningtablediscworld@gmail.com. Our main social media is BlueSky, where we're at dtdiscworld.bsky.social, where I've recently been posting pictures from old Discworld calendars. We are on Facebook as Dining Table Discworld. It can be hard to tell when there's a real comment there because of how Facebook is, but we will keep an eye out. Secondly, Dave and I are going to World Fantasy Con in Brighton at the end of October. If you're also going and want to say hi, just let us know.
Hello, I'm Dave.
And I'm Kathy.
And today we are going to take a slight detour, not touching on our next book in the series. Instead, we're going to be talking about the Soul Music TV show. That was a 7-part TV show, originally broadcast in 1997 by Cosgrove Hall Films, Channel 4 TV, and a number of other random corporations, that production houses that I have no idea who they were. If you want a synopsis, go see our previous episode where we talked about Soul Music, the book.
I think because I'd mentioned this cartoon quite a bit when we were recording the Soul Music episode, I thought about it quite a lot when I was reading the book of Soul Music. We realised you can find it on YouTube, so we thought we'll watch it, because as I mentioned in that, I had it on VHS, which I guess ages me a little bit. Can't even remember quite where I ordered it from. It may have been from the back of one of my other Discworld books, or there was a web page on there because I'd go on the internet occasionally, and I remember ordering it and it came in a parcel, which again was something that's quite unusual for me at that age.
Yeah.
And the top of the VHS box was slightly damaged because it was like 2 VHSs in there.
Yeah.
So it was like a double case, and the top was a little bit damaged, but the VHS themselves were fine.
You can only get 90 minutes on a VHS, so yes to it.
Yeah. It also had a bit at the beginning where Sir Terry talked through, the things he liked about the animation, how much he enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, this is unusual for being a 7 episodes rather than 6 is much more common.
For British things generally.
Yeah. So 7 just but if you add that extra bit in. It was also the first adaptation of an entire Discworld novel. They had a Welcome to Discworld short, which was based on a fragment from Reaper Man. I don't believe I've ever seen that, so I might have to see if I can find it on YouTube. But yeah, this is the first full-length adaptation, and obviously adapted into an animated adaptation.
Yes, so Cosgrove Hall, quite familiar probably to, I guess, Brits of a certain age, which includes us, because they did the sort of Danger Mouse and Count Duckula original animations.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is very difficult to find, along with Weird Sisters, which is the other one. They did release it as a DVD back in 2001, and then never again. So, if you want to go and find it...
YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube. It's a little grainy, but, it's all there.
I think I seem to remember having a choice between this one and Weird Sisters. I'm not even sure particularly why I chose this one, but at the time. But yeah, I've never seen the Weird Sisters one, which I think is why we haven't sorted that out, but maybe something to look for at another point.
We'll dig that out. I'm sure they go on YouTube. Okay, so we have some criteria we're going to talk about. So
I think the first one I'm going to go through is kind of adaptation, so how it adapts from the novel.
Yeah.
And I think we said this was pretty faithful.
I mean, you're hitting all the keynotes. I mean, they lose some things, but you do in all adaptions. I think we'll talk about the ones that we kind of miss in a bit.
Yeah.
But I think as a whole, it's pretty faithful. The plot line is all there really.
And I think the thing I've seen people say this, like on BlueSky, BlueSky, if people don't use it, has quite a good sort of Discworld feed where people just quite often chat about Discworld on there. So we tend to hang out on there a bit in our Discworld account. I've seen people say one of the issues with adapting Pratchett is a lot of the texture and the humour and the feeling of it comes from narrative voice, which is the hardest bit to adapt to an audiovisual medium. So you don't kind of have that so much. But I think there are quite whole sections of dialogue and conversation that are straight from the books, and they clearly include stuff. And then obviously they've made changes to adapt it to audiovisual medium. When we talk about things they added, I mean, obviously in the book, the gigs are, you get description of what happens around them, but you don't actually see the gig themselves. You just get told how people reacted, how the band felt, which is usually they've taken over. Whereas in this, they had to actually write songs and depict gigs.
Yeah.
And one thing that gets removed is a lot of the music references in the text. Like, there's not stuff about all the other bands in Ankh-Morpork. There's just, like, one that's there very briefly.
No Def Leppards.
No. But they use the fact that they're doing the gigs and they have to show the band performing as the references. So, it starts off with Buddy being very much like Elvis and doing a very Elvis-y song, and he's got, blue shoes.
Yeah.
And then, they go through the Beatles, Hendrix, various other things I don't recall now, but you got each gig's like a different section of rock and roll, and they're using the kind of the songs they've done for it and the band's costumes to convey that. Which
Pratchett does do in the book by talking about the songs that they're performing and some of the the things around it, how they're performing and certain things. So it's just taking that and going, because we did talk about, you can see through the progression in the book, the progression of the musical styles, and that they just depict this as musical styles rather than.
Well, in this you can hear it. That's the point. Yeah, and there's also one gag that's in this that I remembered really well and I realised wasn't in the book is when they go to Quirm and they're talking about how proud they are of their cheeses, and then Bud is like, "We're bigger than cheeses," and then they have to run out of town. And again, obviously we mentioned in the book episode of ours that they make Blod Liverpudley,
yes,
which obviously is relevant, although obviously Buddy is specifically Welsh. But and then that's in there. And I'd kind of forgotten that Lias is American, although obviously it makes sense. For some reason his voice hadn't sunk into my head so well as some of the others. But, but obviously he's kind of like, he's got the whole the bluesman sort of thing, and although being a drummer, but so that's kind of a way of taking what were references in a book and sort of changing it for a TV show. The other thing that was removed, a big thing removed, is actually Susan's background. We don't see hardly anything of Susan being at school, where it's a reasonable chunk at the beginning of the book. Susan's regular life, being at school, what school's like, and also her friends. You just get like a couple of scenes at school and that's kind of it, really.
Yeah.
And the characters are just, there's a couple of lines some girls say, mostly teasing her, but teasing her more obviously, it's very obviously at all point actually got a birthmark, just to, I guess, highlight that. Whereas in the book, everything was a bit more subtle and I guess realistic, and like Binky just appears and she goes off and there's not this ongoing stuff, and you don't have horse girls in it, and you don't have her friends Jade and Gloria, which is kind of a shame because I think like it flattens Susan a little bit.
I think it's part of the kind of shift in the focus of the story. I think for the book the focus is much more on Susan's journey, Death's journey, and kind of the bit with the wizards and it's kind of just background noise, and
because the wizards are still pretty much
and the band's sort of journey again is kind of just happens as kind of, and everything else happens around. But there is a strong focus on Susan as in the adaptation, the animation they've kind of gone, well, actually we want the music to be, the band to be more of the focus, and Susan's journey is muted a bit.
Yes, I mean both Susan and Buddy are obviously still the focal characters, and Death, But yes, Susan's background is flattened, and actually Buddy's background is increased, although that's partly, I guess, just to convey... Well, to just convey in text what is more subtextual narrative voice in the book, because it actually shows him yelling at his father in Rainy Wales, and his father's talking about the druid stuff and the mining the stones, and he just stomps out and claims he's going to be the greatest musician ever.
Yeah.
So which I think was stuff that we kind of got through thoughts in Buddy's head in the book. It's depicted.
They show it rather than just having it kind of eke out as it goes along.
But I just think it's interesting that her background is flattened and his is what's the opposite of flattened?
Inflated?
Yeah, maybe. It's given more shape.
Yeah.
Colour, I think the main thing of Susan's background we see more of is actually Isabel's death.
Yeah.
Because in the book it sort of describes it, and Pratchett does that thing that he does quite well of describing like a scene and doing it in kind of a bit of a televisual manner, but it's in a book.
Big exposure.
Like a flaming wheel comes loose. But you just sort of see that's happening, and then it cuts to Death saying something, that's it. Whereas in this, they actually show Mort and Isabel in the coach. They show them clinging to each other. It falls, and then Isabel looks through the back thing and yells, "Father!"
Yeah.
So we actually, we don't see the moment of her death, but it's clear. that these are the people who are in this coach. We can see them.
Yeah.
Which makes it kind of more tragic, I think. But I guess maybe it's to show Isabel and then show Susan. And
I suppose you have to think in some respects. People coming at this.
There's not the assumption necessarily it was just Discworld fans watching.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Discworld fan, you're likely to have read Mort, so you wouldn't have needed it for the book. But for those, to try and reach a broader audience, and it's not a major change. I think it's just enough that when you see them later, and it's a bit more. It's
you're
just
like, it's these people.
Yes,
they're the ones that died before.
Yeah,
but because there's time travel stuff, obviously. That's it. I think you sort of said, obviously, with the book, it's very much focus on grief, and in this, it's more a focus on music.
Yeah, I think we do lose the grief journey aspect of it. You still get some of the key points.
You get Death's more.
Death's trying to forget, but even so,
the reason he's trying to forget is because he's grieving.
Yeah, but I don't think it's quite as obvious.
I feel like with Susan's dream, that's where it's flattened. It doesn't seem as much because you don't have her interiority so much. And it doesn't have her... at one point she does say, what was it? The good will be spared and the old will die young. But it doesn't quite feel the same way. And also I feel like Susan's character, which I guess we might... It's fine, but she seems kind of a little bit fluffier.
Mm.
Like in the book, she's very like, I am a logical person and people are just being silly. And sometimes people are her.
Yeah.
Which is a bit like, oh, don't beat yourself up. but also, she's annoyed at herself for what she sees as silliness, but she's also annoyed at other people for what she sees as silliness. Whereas actually in this, she seems kind of a bit more sympathetic, but it also makes her seem a little bit maybe girlier or fluffier or something than in the book, where I feel like she seems colder, but I think it's because she's pushing stuff down more. It doesn't come out till the end, whereas they don't sort of show that bit at the end.
I think you do lose the. You do get partway through the she does the realization that when she realizes that her grandfather's death and her parents have just died,
her mother particularly.
Yeah, she gets the realization there that obviously that's but you don't.
That's
get
been an unpleasant family situation.
Yeah, you don't get later on. I feel some of the kind of. You do get to talk towards the end about I could have given them life, but it wouldn't. He could have given them immortality, but it wouldn't have been life. Yeah, and things like that. But it just doesn't feel like she comes to terms with her family's death as much as she did there wasn't as much personal growth. And I think for the death storyline, it almost feels like the kind of I just want to forget. It's kind of not pointing out actually, no, the reason he's trying to forget so much is that he's had to reap his daughter. Yeah. And I don't feel quite, there's that much, that impact. Mm. It kind of just loses it, and then he's just kind of wandering around. It does show a little bit more of Susan's
like young childhood when she's visiting death.
Yes.
Because it does show, like, there's some sort of thing which I think in the book was just a joke about, using Grandad's, rib cage as a xylophone.
Yeah, they do.
Which they actually show, and when I read the book, I was like, I think this was just a metaphor.
Yeah, I think it was.
I think it was just Albert making a joke.
I think that was supposed to be a joke that they turned into a.
There was the bony knees thing, and they don't. You don't see Susan going around the house and sort of figuring out what her grandfather was like and seeing the difference with her mother's room. Yeah. But you do see when she visits as a kid and when Mort and Isabel say, no, we're not bringing her anymore, that's that. So you sort of see that relationship a bit more. But it's not about her, she just saw it and forgot.
You see her on you see the swing and her on it, but you as a child, but you don't see her finding it later and coming to the realisation.
Well, she does sit on. She remembers it and sits on it, but it doesn't show her realisation of why it's like that.
Yeah, that kind of that link.
And again, the whole thing with like how Def's house is all appearance, like the desk is just a desk. But again, it's kind of hard to, I guess, do that in a TV show, so it flattens that. It kind of flattens the Deaf Domain bit as well. It just flat the Deaf Domain is.
I think it just because in the book we get a lot of talk about the plumbing and how the baths and things, and the toilets.
Albert mentions going out for the plumber.
Yeah, but that is what is one line.
It also, I don't think, makes quite clear that the only thing Deaf can offer as an alternative is Albert's life. Like you can offer immortality. It's like, but then you're stuck there and you have to be Albert. And Isabel already lived that for way too long. Exactly. Which again, we know that going into it, but it's not kind of in the text of the cartoon. Do you have anything else on adaptation? I mean, it is pretty faithful.
I mean, it's pretty faithful, as I say. The stuff they...
with obviously it changing to different medium.
Yeah, obviously we do. I think the biggest thing, obviously, is the kind of the emphasis of things, and we lose some of the jokes, but
we gain some other ones. Yeah, and there's various visual gags as well, which we'll get into.
Yeah, so as far as that goes, it's pretty good. I mean, we see. I think we know some pretty poor adaptions of books and that we've watched, so this isn't too bad.
Oh yeah. Do you want to talk about casting?
Yes.
Or did we want to go through how the characters are and then go into casting, or can I do the two together?
I think do the two together.
Yeah, can. Okay. We'll go with the headline, which is Christopher Lee as Deaf, who is iconic.
No notes. That's it. I mean,
he basically set the template for how I think Deaf sounds.
I mean, I'm sorry. He is absolutely. His voice is perfect. He nails the lines.
He puts because Deaf always sounds a little bit emotionless. Well, he sort of seems a bit not emotionless, but like he seems fairly of a particular tone, but he still gets some like nuances in there, and that's all.
I mean,
good.
I mean, that's it. Sorry to everyone who had to voice Death afterwards, really.
I don't feel like Brian Cox was really trying that hard, though, let's face it.
No.
I can't remember who did it in other stuff, but certainly Brian Cox I don't think was given it at all. There's that bit where they show the end part of Mort when Susan goes back and sees what happens, and that bit where, I can't remember the whole thing now, but it's something a bit like, you neglected the duty, damaged history, seduced my daughter. All in all, not a good start to your first job, boy. And then even when I read more, I can still hear that. Yeah. I can't now remember the words, but I can hear it. And like also doing the laugh when he laughs. It's like, oh.
Yeah.
And even when he's drunk or he's a bit discombobulated, like, it's all good.
Just, yeah.
Also, Christopher Lee has a metal album.
I mean, Christopher Lee...
also based on an anecdote of Peter Jackson, it sounds like he may have dispatched some people too,
but only in World War II, so it was allowed.
Well, as Peter Jackson put it, he suggested how he should do the bit where Saruman dies, and apparently he said, Peter, that's not what people do when they die. It's more like this. And he's like, and they explained to me some very covert parts of World War II. And it's like, well, as long as he was killing Nazis, it's fine. Anyway,
moving on.
So the next, I guess, famous to me person who's in it, but a very small part, is Neil Morrissey as Mort. Now, this would have been... he's only in it a little bit.
I mean, to be fair to the guy, he's in it for, he has about 4 lines. He
doesn't even get to yell when in the Deaf scene, but there is the bit where that bit where him and Deaf are fighting at the end of the events of the book, Mort. And then also when he's saying to Deaf they're not going to bring Susan there anymore. Because at that point, that was during the whole men behaving badly sort of time. Yeah. So Neil Morrissey was like a guy on TV.
It's perfectly fine. Yeah. No, wasn't in it enough to really...
And then playing Rid Cully was Graham Crowden, who has been in various things, but I mostly know him as one of the main characters in the sitcom Waiting for God, which I don't remember very well. because I was quite small, and probably one of those things that was odd and was clearly funny. I didn't get a lot of jokes. But it's about the people in like a nursing home like, misbehaving.
I mean, he was fine. I think the way...
I thought you quite liked how he'd done Ridcully.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite nice. I mean, they kind of give Ridcully and Susan more of a grandfather-granddaughter relationship.
Oh, I didn't quite read it that, because it's a bit like that in the book, though. I kind of think I forgot how much that was in the book.
Yeah.
I don't think they altered it too much, actually, what Ridcully does.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, certainly,
The main bit is at the end where, this kind of, we'll get into Susan thing, with Susan being a bit fluffier, she seems to go around kissing people on the cheek quite a bit. Yeah. She does it to Ridcully at one point, and I was like, oh, all right. But in both the cartoon and the book, he does the role of Ash Kente, but like the small one with the egg, Susan gets pulled in, everyone wants to question her, and he's like, no, it's this nice young woman, like, offers her breakfast.
Yeah.
And she gets all annoyed, and he's just trying to talk nicely and is trying to be charming. Yeah, but he was being quite pleasant. He wasn't being, like, unpleasant like he is to almost everyone else.
No.
But then she gets annoyed and leaves.
Yeah.
But he's kind of fine with it.
Yeah,
so.
I think Ridcully is. Okay, shall we talk about the rest of the characters? So, the main character is Imp, and he's played by Andy Hockley. He also, as a side note, played adult Tom John in Weird Sisters.
Oh, well, we can listen to that when we watch that at some point.
He is a Welsh actor and singer.
Well, it makes sense that he'd be Welsh.
Well, yes, I mean, Welsh.
And a singer.
Yes. Interesting fact here, he is, according to Wikipedia, so, yeah. Andy is the longest-serving wizard in Wicked, having performed the role 1,119 times. Okay. From July 2017 until March 2020, and then September 21 to January 2022. So there we go.
Okay. As people can tell with a lot of these voice actors, we are kind of relying on Wikipedia, because I think other than the ones we've mentioned, most of them were people whose names we didn't particularly recognise because they mostly do voice acting, but they are in the credits and on Wikipedia.
Yes. I mean, we haven't seen Wicked in... Yeah. No, we actually have. We haven't seen the Wicked in the West End, so we wouldn't have known.
No, it's in the UK tour. Well, so obviously he doesn't really sound Welsh when he's singing, but we sort of discussed before that actually various Welsh singers don't particularly sound Welsh when they're singing.
No, it is one of those...
Certainly in pop and rock songs.
Yes.
Obviously in Welsh, like, choral singing they do.
I mean, it's kind of the point of the Welsh choral singing, really, if you're not sounding Welsh.
Very harmonious people, the Welsh.
Well, yes, they are. I am only half harmonious.
Well, we found out a few years ago I'm a little more Welsh and realised, but I don't remember what any of the percentages are of that. But I think it's interesting how that's different to the book, where obviously Imp's accent is portrayed with the kind of the double L's on everything.
All of the L's.
So it makes always look real long. And
I thought all is always a bit.
Yes, it gets a bit silly.
He sounds Welsh all the way through.
Yeah.
I don't think you don't
except for singing, as we discussed.
Except for singing, yeah. But you don't get quite the same drop off of the accent.
Because he sounds Welsh when he's talking to Susan when he's not singing, so that's kind of more the specific difference.
But I think that's more difficult to do.
But it's interesting though that when he plays the harp, he's not singing then, it's just the harp music. Whereas you get the impression in the book he was singing. But
yes.
I say
Yeah,
I mean, again, it's that vagueness in the book. You don't know what the performance is, just what effect it had.
Yeah.
But, in this you see both.
Yeah. But I think he does a good job of,
He looks kind of Elvis-y, yes. And they make the Elvish joke, but they don't do the song at the end, because that would involve too much knowledge about Susan's school, which we don't have.
Yes.
So that was quite the payoff for that, but yeah. But yeah, his character design is pretty good again, like young, like guy with a quiff. Susan's character design, I think, is all right. She sort of looks about the age. When I started reading, I can't remember how old she was, and I thought she was younger than she's 16. But I think it's just when I read it, I was younger.
Yeah, I think I didn't. I found the voice actor, so it was Deborah Gillett. Has done a few things, but nothing more that I've not recognised. I just didn't quite find her voice.
I didn't think it was too bad.
Didn't match my internal voice for Susan very well. I mean, everything else has been fine. It's just this sort of, I don't know, just is, But I think that might come down to the kind of, as you were talking about, the softening of Susan.
I mean, again, I thought it was more the way she was depicted visually and some of the action she took, like mostly the kissing bit. Because at one point she gives the raven like a kiss on top of the head, and then Death Rats or something. She's like, "Well, I'm not giving you a kiss," and I'm like, "It seems weird you're giving anyone a kiss." But I think it was more at the time. I seem to recall now when you're a young woman, it's like, oh, you have to just like give a peck on the cheeks around the relatives, which I didn't really have to do that much actually, but I think was more of a thing for some people. Yeah. So, but yeah, it seemed a bit more that. I mean, the voice didn't, I thought that was fine.
It was just, as I say,
and she does do the bit because they have her do, the voice a couple of times, and that works all right.
Yeah, I think it's just. I think we've pointed out most of the things with Susan is just perhaps for us is the storyline aspects don't quite.
I think the way what they've chosen to emphasise just flattens her a little bit.
Yeah.
But so some other ones. Visually, Ridco looked good. They had the hat with the drawer in. It had an arrow for his hat. So again, he looked like you would expect. The faculty looked a little bit. They were all a lot skinnier than I think we're supposed to think they were.
Yeah.
But they were still a group of here's a group of wizards that I can't remember which one's which. They're just like old guys with beards. Oh, and this one's the dean.
Yeah.
And that's accurate. I mean, they were different colours though. They kind of colour coded them a little bit rather than all being in red robes. Well, I mean, I guess that's just the Paul Kidby.
We didn't see the bursar. They didn't have.
They had one guy who looked a bit nervy, but it wasn't clear any particular one was the Bursar.
Yeah,
he was out. I think the thing with the Bursar, though, is A, as we've discussed before, it's kind of making fun of somebody with mental health issues, which isn't great. And B, you'd have to kind of explain his whole thing, and they didn't really have room for that.
No.
Because the wizards were just like, now here's the wizards, they're doing a thing. Off to the main plot again,
it's I mean, really, I think that
Ponder was good.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the only real reason you keep the wizards in is because you need them for the motorcycle at the end.
And I guess, and for Rig Cully to perform the Red Flash Kente.
Yeah, but yeah.
And also as a barometer for how the city's doing, because we don't see a lot of the rest of the city. It's kind of just the wizards and then the maids at one point when they come in and deliver a burger while singing a Lou Reed song.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, Ponder Stibbons is, and I thought he was good. Mad Drongo.
I mean, that was exactly how it was in the book. It's just like a load of hair with a nose coming out. Yeah. So that was good.
Yeah, Ponder works.
Also the fact that Ridco's there going, that's your name, is it? That's what's sewn into your vest, is it? So again, that's another bit when he said that. I was like, oh yeah, I can hear it. So another character with quite distinctive characterisation is Dibbler.
Yeah, I mean...
Dibbler was basically depicted as, and I guess this is another reference or age me, as Boise from Only Fools and Horses.
Which, I mean, would have been right on the money for the time period, If you, I mean, as I said, I think it's very accurate for him in this, in soul music. He's going around with a sausage pretending to be a cigar. Yeah. And I think
which is the only reference to the sausage stuff, but
and I think almost in some respects as well he's got that big brown jacket that you have. He's got that kind of like going thin on top, slightly greasy looking thing, and again he just sounds like Boise from Only Fools. I just don't see that version of him selling sausages in a bun. It works for this, within...
It's like dodgy, music.
Yeah, within the context. I think for the greater context, I mean, Dibbler is very much, chameleonic. He will change, to best suit.
I think this version would also work for, moving pictures.
I was going to say, it would that moving pictures, but less for the...
Yeah, that kind of that big brown coat. It looks like he could have anything in it he's trying to sell to you on the street, should this not go right.
But on the other hand, it just doesn't seem like he would be there to kind of, with...
I liked it. I thought it was...
As I say, I didn't object to it in the context of this. It's just I couldn't see it with that.
He seemed appropriately greasy, like a man who might have been handling sausages all day, but, Other ones that I guess are worth... I mean, most of the trolls look very sort of stony, but in different ways. It's not all like, here are a load of identical looking people who are maybe a little bit like the Thing.
Yeah.
In fact, that reminds me, our son did look at one of the book covers which had a troll on and goes, that's the Thing. I'm like, that's actually a troll, but I see your point. It's a similar sort of deal.
Yes. Yeah, big and rocky.
Yeah.
I mean Elias, Cliff... is Bluestone is his. I mean,
that's the clue.
Yeah, he does. He's a bit more of a, possibly a bit more of a wiry troll, but you have to be a bit more.
You have to do a bit running, but he's still big and also when he moves, you can hear they do like kind of a stony sound effect. But Chris O'Face is definitely like the Godfather.
Yes, well,
so which is again the characterization. Yeah. Asphalt, he's small and
looks like he's been sat on by an elephant.
Yes, and they do mention that as well.
Yeah.
So, I think they've put in quite a few of the, the jokes are in conversation. They've got, as many in as they can, I think. One character sort of interesting was Hibiscus, the owner of at that point, the owner of the mended drum.
Yeah, again, I couldn't... He seems a little bit of a wet blanket.
He was kind of camp and also Irish. And I remember that he was camp, but I can't remember that he was Irish for some reason.
He just seemed a little bit limp to be the proprietor of the drum. I don't know. He was fine.
Because I noticed that in later books there's somebody. Well, it mentions Ron behind the bar and the drum, whether he's the barman or the owner. Because I think the point in soul music is it. Practice says, the owner of the drum was Hibiscus. I can't remember what his surname was. And he goes, it was not his fault. But it says he was trying to class the place up a bit. Yeah. And that guy did seem like somebody who's, he wants to class it up a bit. But it still shows it as being quite fighty and stuff. But later, when Death comes in and starts drinking dry, he has that sort of like, oh, you don't say. You've got somebody jamming on, like, I'm just going to keep pouring drinks. Yeah, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
So he threatened him, you did go a bit like, but that was Death threatening him? So, like...
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the point in that, he was just supposed to be some guy who's gotten this band in and, gets really annoyed that everything's broken, but then suddenly loads of people want the money. He's like, can you come back tomorrow? So...
Yeah, as I say, it just seemed a little...
I thought it was interesting, though. Yeah. I mean, obviously there's tons of crowd scenes and characters and, you've got, like, various... I mean, Susan's Clash, we seem to have a couple of dwarves and a couple of trolls in it as well.
I think
they decided not to, again, we're not going to include like, Jade and Gloria at all. We're just going to make them part of the scenery.
I think that was also possibly ease of animation.
Yeah.
Just duplicate a couple of the, it's...
I mean, it had some of them in the crowd scenes later.
Yeah.
Also, I think at one point they have a character talking, but her beard is moving, so then you don't even have to do lips. Yeah. Let's talk about the characters you found difficult in Animal Report, because we do a couple of times see Sergeant Colon and Corporal Nobbs.
No, that was my first response. It was like, no, not having this.
I think Colon was quite close. He had that kind of drawly voice. He was like he was like a chubby guy. He had that drawly voice. Nobby isn't right, but I don't know if you can depict Nobby. He's like Maris from Frasier. No. You can't depict.
I mean,
too much has been said.
I mean, for a start, he was the same height as Colon.
Well, they're doing that double act thing where you've got one guy who's rotund and one guy who's skinny and therefore kind of tall.
Okay, yeah, you're trying to do that, but these are two classic characters who have their defined characteristics.
Again, Nobby's characteristics are defined in such a way he cannot be depicted accurately.
But he's short.
He is short.
That one you can find. He's short and has to carry a certificate to say he's a human.
Yeah, and people don't think he might be a monkey. He clearly doesn't look enough like a dwarf that people think, it must be a dwarf just because he's short. So, yeah.
Yeah, but in this situation, he was tall and
my picture of Nobby is very much the kind of like grey skinned sort of little guy from the cover of Men at Arms, because that was my first watch book.
And Colon.
But they were just there briefly.
I know, but I'm allowed to, that was for me.
I just don't think Colon was like quite as bad, or is it just the carryover from the wrongness of Nobbs?
Possibly, I don't know, but no, I just they were both wrong, and
So Albert was all right. We don't see him so much, just bits, but we do sort of see him a bit, and you do sort of see him hunting for Death. And like using up the little life he has left because of that. And then you've got the Raven, who's got a like squawky bird voice. And then there's Death of Rats.
I found the Death of Rats possibly, for a start, his mouth moved, which I wasn't quite sure on, because obviously Death's jaw doesn't move.
Well, apart from when he laughs.
Yeah.
Which is a bit scary, but yeah.
So there's the rat's jaw moving, possibly. And I found the squeaks didn't quite...
Well, they weren't quite squeaks. They're more like little kind of... kind of noises.
Didn't quite have the same...
But that's why he had to have his mouth moved to show that he was the one making that noise and not the Raven, I guess. But they're a little bit squawky.
Still didn't have that kind of, this is the voice of...
Well, no, because they were high-pitched. It wasn't...
Yeah.
Well, I think they were just going with, like, here's a... They just gave him some little noises.
I know, but I just, the whole point of this is we're going to pick holes in it, if we want to.
Is it? Okay. I'm sure that was, like, the mission statement, but okay. But yes, those are, I guess, the character designs. Yeah, and obviously the animation design is very classic Cosgrove Hall, and, we've mentioned obviously Danger Mouse and Count Dracula were things that were on... I don't know if they were on them, but they've been on, like, not that long before during watching them.
Look at it now, it is very basic. But, it's basic but functional, and, you don't have flashy... We have a couple of flashy effects, but other than that, it's It's very, and I think it's also kind of links in to my memories of what the similarities to the computer games. I know they're not the same graphics that they've got, but
Yeah, because I never played those.
No, but it's a very simplistic style. You're getting across. It's not got too much complicated because they can animate.
Well, you say that though. I mean, it's sort of. The animation itself is sort of simple 2D, but it's not minimal. Like, you could have had it... There was quite a lot of background detail. There's quite a lot of detail to the characters. Like, I didn't feel like they were skimping on stuff, because I think some stuff tries to make things too clean. Like, there's almost not... Like, little there. But they really obviously thought about the sets and the backgrounds and what the city looked like.
But when you looked at the kind of the clothing, you didn't have a lot of like folds.
Oh yeah.
You've got
things weren't textured.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Is when you're looking at the buildings, you didn't have lots of brickwork and
but
things.
I think now we're just used to too much stuff being like that.
I wasn't saying it was bad. I was saying it was a definitive style.
Yeah.
And
which we don't really have nowadays.
Yeah, and then it was quite acceptable. Style wise.
I mean, they did have the fancy shots. So the opening sequence has a kind of like 3D style thing of Greater Tuin, and it kind of goes around the turtle and the discs and under the elephant and the turtle.
I think that's got to have been a CGI, early CGI.
Oh yeah, well that's kind of why I said 3D, because we used to just call it 3D before we started saying CGI. I think.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. So one thing they have is a very interesting way of doing the kind of previously section on each episode. They sort of have this hourglass effect, because obviously it's, death stuff. So what will happen is little scenes from the previous episode or episodes that are relevant will kind of appear in the top of this hourglass and play in front of you. And then when they're done, they kind of like go down and sort of spin around in the bottom bit. And then the next scene in the previously does it. But there's no one sort of explaining anything or anything. It just shows the clips from the previous episode. But I just thought that's a really nice way of doing it, being a death story, and therefore hourglasses being a thing, and also showing sort of time passing, what's happened before.
It's generally focused on the image. It's not literally the whole page. It's the image of the person talking, saying the relevant thing that's going to be, which makes it nicely framed within the top of the hourglass.
Yeah, and then when it goes down to the bottom, although the new one's there, you can sort of see it spinning around there until it goes down. So that's just quite a cool effect that they did. Yeah. But I think in some respects, the fact that it wasn't minimalist, the fact there was quite a lot of detail, and so, I mean, you'd have a lot of detail in the background, or like certain characters would have various bits on them. They weren't simple, but yeah, you're right, they weren't textured. There wasn't like folds and shadows and shading. It was more just the drawing has detail to it. But that, I think, goes quite well with the Kirby covers, which obviously were the covers at the time and will keep being the covers for some time later. You've got all these details. I mean, it's not kind of like bubbly and melting like a lot of his stuff is, but it kind of had that level of detail. So one thing I'm doing on the Dining Table Discworld account on BlueSky, which do follow us if you're on there, that would be lovely. But what I've been doing for a while is putting pictures from various Discworld calendars up. And we've got one calendar that's all Kirby covers. And goodness, when you try and do the alt text on those, there's a lot to say. Yeah. And they're like, can I fit all this in the alt text? But yeah, so I mean, his covers always have a lot going on in them. And I think this... some like the crowd scenes were obviously repeated and stuff changed, but like the characters have detail and like the settings have detail. It just might be a different kind of detail than what animation tends towards now. Yeah,
I mean, it's very, very different. I mean, 97 animation was, and obviously the Cosgrove Hall were famous for doing, the children's stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, they've done lots of other stuff as well, but yeah. It's,
I just think that if you say Cosgrove Hall, most people are going to be like, oh, yeah, Danger Mouse. Yeah. Count Dracula.
Yeah. Overall, I think we enjoyed it,
Yes. I mean, for me, it was very nostalgic because this was one of the things that, because I had it on VHS, I'd watch it fairly regularly.
I suppose the question is, would you show this to a Discworld novice? Do you think there's enough?
I think you could do.
Yeah,
I mean, we could show it to the boy and see what he ranks.
I mean, we could, yes. Well, some of them, you obviously, with all these things, you get more out of it if you know the source material. But I mean, I think that.
But things can. But sometimes that's good. Sometimes and I've done this where you watch something like, oh, I don't know all the things about this, but now I'm quite intrigued to find out. Yeah,
what I'm saying is,
I think it works.
The story is relatively. I think it's why they concentrated on the music, Buddy's story and the music, rather than trying to deal with the Grease story, because that's a bit more of a complicated sell.
Also, music's a lot easier to show in an audiovisual format. Well, I mean, you can obviously show Grief, and there's loads of works that are all about that, but this was about so many other things. Like, yes,
had to cut a few things down. Yeah,
and maybe that's harder in animation. It's worth checking out.
Yeah. I mean, you got to find it on YouTube, but...
I mean, you just have to be careful because if you just search soul music, you get like a lot of other stuff, which is fair enough because that's the whole genre of music.
Yeah,
but
yeah. So yes, I mean, so yes, go find it, and if you haven't already seen it, well, worth checking out. I think that's all we got to say on the subject.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, thank you very much for listening.
Yes, thank you.
We'll be back next time when we will be talking about Feet of Clay. So until then, goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Dining Table Discworld. You can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Dining Table Discworld. You can also find us on BlueSky at dtdiscworld. All our other contact information and credits for our music can be found in our show notes. Thank you for listening again, and we'll see you in our next episode.